Yo, what is up, YouTube Awesome Family, it's K right here. I'm back up with another good video for y'all today. This will be my last video before I doze off tonight. I'll be back on the grind tomorrow, as always. Yeah, let's get this show right up on the road. So yeah, man, let's talk about Spence and Crawford fight date. It is official. Shout out to Ricky Williams Boxing for disclosing, the confirmed news that Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford is now official. We now have a fight date. We just don't know when. In November. It's supposed to be listed for November 26th or November 29th. I'm gonna be here to just talk about the fight date, of why these fight dates are kind of weird to have them on, and why are they choosing to have it on that fight date. Looking at the calendar, you do have a pretty wide stretch of events going on with Thanksgiving Day, and then obviously Black Friday, if I'm not mistaken. Black Friday, I believe that is the day after Thanksgiving, but either way, I would rather have been okay with November 18th, or I don't know. I think it's better to have it on a Saturday where there's no, interference of other sports. Because if I'm not mistaken, I believe football is in contention on those dates, especially with college football. But I don't know. I think it just needs to be experimented, because even though that Errol Spence and Crawford, they're not the biggest names out there, but it's the biggest issue of the matter is just that they just need to get up inside of the ring and fight. But the problem is that we can't see them fight if they are not willing to actually come up with a proper date per se for having the fight solidified. So that's pretty much my biggest issue with Bud and Spence, of how this fight date is going to be properly solidified. So I think November 26th or 29th. I'm not really too much of a fan for those dates. Just simply because there's just too much interference on those dates, and I think either way, when you really think about it, the dates overall would actually scale a lot better. If it was a week earlier, before Thanksgiving. If they did it on November 18th or 19th, I think November 19th would be the perfect date, because you don't really have anything going on other than football. But you could have that fight date easily be made. But if anything, I think December would be a pretty good event. I think having it on December 10th or December 17th, that would be a perfect fight date. But I think either way, November 26th, 29th, I'm okay with it. Obviously on a marketing standpoint, that's going to be a pretty difficult task. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Well. Hold up. Alright. But yeah. Pretty much. I think on a marketing standpoint, especially for the PBC, it would make a lot better sense to promote the fight on a date where there's no sports interfering. And I think doing that on a day where football isn't really in session of interfering with boxing would definitely be a pretty good, stage of where the fight will be put on. So, I mean, that's pretty much what I think about it. But as far as Bud and Spence goes, I mean, the fight is already sold. You just need to get the return of your investment put into the fight. So, the problem that I have is just that if the fight is being made for those dates, we need to have a proper, price line of how much investment for the fight will be promoted and how much money will be generated for the pay-per-view. Because this is either going to be a one-fight deal or at least a 2 to 3 fight deal. I think two fight deal would make the most sense, and I think Showtime and the PBC, they can easily generate a lot of that money back with other big fights, because it's not like Spence and Crawford is not going to make them any money. But it's like, think about it, Deontay Wilder's coming back in October, so Spence and Crawford to headline, if Spence and Crawford did it in the month of October, that would make a lot better sense, because there's nothing going on in October other than just football and college sports. But the fact that they're doing it in the month of November, where there's a lot of big sporting events going on, especially with college football, you have Heisman Trophy night that's coming up in December, and then you obviously have, just let the power sported teams, all the big colleges coming from college sports TV, especially in college football and college basketball brewing up, because college basketball starts around October, November, time frame. But that's going to be the biggest issue, because it's you don't have too much of a ceiling of where you're, where you want to go in terms of what you want to do. So I don't know, man. I think that's pretty much the biggest takeaway from it. There's just so much, speculation of how much money will be made back for the fight if there were to be a rematch. Because Deontay Wilder, when he comes back, that's going to give Showtime a crap ton of money, especially with the PBC, to bring back money on the table. And then they could use that money to probably fund Spence and Crawford for a rematch, because it's not like Crawford, he's going to win this fight single-handedly. I don't think Crawford's going to get another $20 million whatever paycheck sent to him. I think this is either it for Crawford, or Crawford's going to end up beating Spence, and then he'll move up to 154. That's on the theoretical term. I don't think Spence is going to do that. I think Spence is look, I'm going to beat your ass once, and then I'm going to move up to 54. Because I don't think a rematch is needed. But even if you guys want a rematch, you have to think about the money Crawford is going to be pricing himself out for. But it's he's not stupid, man. Crawford knows what Spence is going to do to him. Spence is going to come into that fight to end his career. He doesn't care what Crawford does outside of boxing. He cares about what he needs to do to be undisputed, and then he wants to do the same thing at 154. If Errol Spence can do that to Crawford to take away his career, which I don't think, I'm not saying literally Errol Spence needs to do that, but it's Errol Spence at the point of his, career, at the spectrum that he's at right now, it's he's not playing no games. This is make or break season for Errol Spence, and Errol Spence is on a really, really good path of destroying Terrence Crawford. And if he could do that, and he could actually be undisputed to be the very first ever welterweight in the welterweight division, to go through the hardest challenge ever, to get all 4 of your belts against high tier class level opponents, and become undisputed within one weight class of you going through the most difficult gauntlet of opponents, that speaks a lot of volume for Errol Spence. See, now for Crawford, he doesn't have too much to really lose, but he has a lot to really look back on to say, wow, if I had taken this fight a lot more seriously, and if I had gotten this fight a lot earlier in my career with this guy, I could have been way greater at the level that I'm at now. And I think that's the problem with Bud. Like, he has that mindset similar to, Marvin Hagler in a way where, obviously Marvin Hagler, he's nowhere near Terrence Crawford. He's levels above Crawford. But I'm using the mentality that Crawford had, similar to where Tommy Hearns had his mindset on boxing, where he said, I don't care about the sport anymore. I'm just doing it just to provide for my family or just to be successful. And I mean, I respected that out of Marvin Hagler, but it's like Marvin Hagler, he didn't need to be successful in boxing. Like Marvin Hagler was so good at the sport that he did it because there was just something in him, in his fighting spirit, to keep on going. So it's like he did not enjoy the sport, and I mean, it's like, it's very similar to Sugar Ray Robinson, Joe Louis, like all these old school fighters where they say pretty much the same exact thing. And I find it very interesting because it's like, when you look at these fighters that didn't care about the sport, but they were just that good at it that they just kept on doing it, I think it's a psychological addiction that they have, or it's just something that naturally brings something out of their shell to be that guy, to be like, you know what? If I did any other sport in the world, you would be respected. A lot of people would say, wow, like, you don't enjoy basketball, but you're just that good at it. Like, don't you hear so many NBA players say that? Like, Charles Barkley, he had certain complications where he said he didn't enjoy basketball no more, but yet he was making all this big loaded boats of money. But look at him, he may not have been a world champion, but look at Charles Barkley's career as a player. Like, everyone loves Charles Barkley because everyone knew the sacrifices that he made to be at that level. But even when you become a champion in the NBA, it's not the end of the world. It's not like, oh, well, that's it. Like, no. You could still be hungry, but at the end of the day, do you still love the sport of basketball? And that's really the problem with so many athletes around the world, especially in the sport of boxing. Like, I understand, I guess the pain and suffering per se, because I used to wrestle in high school, but I'll even tell my backstory. I never really enjoyed wrestling. I just did it because I thought it was a good sport for me to get out of my shell away from basketball, because I wasn't selected for my team back in high school. But when I got so good at wrestling and I just kept doing it, I felt like, wow, imagine what I could have done. In which, like, I'm not saying like I would have really wanted to keep on wrestling, do college, wrestling, because like that was never my intention, but I was good enough to actually hone my skills for it. And there was a time where I wanted to do MMA too, so I mean, that was definitely out of the picture, because I was like, you know what, with the amount of disabilities that I have now, I might as well keep myself away from that. So that was my proper decision to do that. But nah, man, it's just very crazy how some of these athletes have such great drive coming into the sport of boxing. And it's just interesting because their motive tells you one thing, but then when you look at the progression of how far they have come, but yet they say, I don't care about the sport, I'm just doing it for the support of my friends and family, or just my family in general. I could definitely respect that, because it's like, not every fighter is built like that. For Terrence Crawford's case, he obviously did boxing because boxing saved him from a very violent past that he used to have, when he was, getting into trouble and he got himself into a bad situation. And I think that the biggest thing that I respect out of Crawford is that when he survived that gunshot when he was doing, very, very not so smart things in the urban streets of getting into crime. Um, I think Crawford has shown to me that he's a very intelligent person when he chooses to be, but he pretends as if he is stupid in the sense of him not thinking of what he says out in public. But it's like Crawford, he has a good mentality of knowing what he wants to do with his life. But at this point of his career, it's like you should have been done great things a lot sooner in your boxing career. And I guess to elaborate more on that is just that after Crawford had won his very first title at 135, I think it would have made a lot better sense for him to go ahead and unify 135 to become a unified champion. He could have had that opportunity up against, obviously Mickey Bay and Omar Figueroa at that time, after he had beat Ricky Burns back in 2014 or 2015 for the title. But that was for the WBO. But it's just like Crawford left so much food on his plate, and I mean he's very similar to Gervonta Tank Davis. Like everybody loves Tank, but the only difference is that Tank sells and Crawford doesn't sell. So that's really the biggest problem that I have with Crawford, because it's like Crawford coming into the Spence fight needs to beat Spence if you want to get the bigger bag. Because if he can beat Spence, and let's just say he could do it twice, that's like 40 to almost $100 million more of what he never made in all of his career. And I mean, Crawford getting paid like $2 to $3 million to fight with Top Rank, and then getting paid another $1 million for the fights that he never got, by their requests. I find that to be a pretty shitty deal, because it's like, when you really think about the contract that he got himself into with Top Rank, it's like Top Rank is screwing Crawford over in terms of the fights that he says that he wants, but then he's not pushing with any action to want the fight. So, like, when everyone says, like, hey, Crawford, would you have wanted to fight Adrian Broner? He says no. But then Adrian Broner, at the time when he was actually doing good, it's like Crawford could have went after him. Crawford could have knocked on Adrian Broner's door back at lightweight. He could have said, yo, AB, come fight me, man. Come take me down. Or how about I come take you down? It would have made a great promotion, and Crawford, if he had beat Adrian Broner at the time frame after the Maidana loss, or after he came back and he started smoking dudes again, like, dude, there's just so much competition that Crawford left behind, and it looks like he more so avoided them, because we already know what time is it, like time it is, man. Like, Crawford is a bona fide warrior. But the problem with Crawford is just that Crawford is not the type of guy that people think he is. And I think when this fight happens between him and Errol Spence, we're going to find out what type of fighter he really is. Either he's a game-bred fighter, or he's he's a hype job, crash test, dummy, failure fighter. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, because if Crawford does lose, at least he lost to one of the best champions in your division that got the best of you. Does that mean that they could do that in the rematch? Possibly. But then again, we don't know how a rematch will go. So, I mean, in boxing, when either man defeats another man, or when either woman defeats another woman, that does not hold the truth of them saying that they're just ultimately better than you. No, they just got you, on their best night, and they ultimately got the victory. But if it was either by unanimous decision or just by knockout, of course, like there's certain speculations that fans will say, but I think based off of a militaristic standpoint, um, like anybody that says anything bad about where you come from, it pretty much just negates of how people want to interact with one another. So I mean, to really fully answer the question, I mean, as far as the amount of yeah, I forgot the topic that we're doing. But as far as like the amount of money that Crawford and Spence will be generating, that will be determined based off of how many people are watching the fight on pay-per-view and how many people are paying for the pay-per-view. And I'm pretty sure that those pay-per-view numbers would definitely be up there in the millions if everybody were to support it. But I think at this point of his career, it's very important to him for him to I think it's more important for Spence to make sure that this fight is solidified and there's proper communication with the family to make sure that the fight is not going to, interrupt with other people's time and effort to want to see Errol Spence. But that's pretty much it, man. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Crawford is going to hold up his end of the deal and fight Spence? Because Spence did say, I'm going to get my belts on this side of the street, i.e. PBC, and now I'm coming after you. So do you think Crawford and Spence is now going to happen? So yeah, I will definitely see you guys later. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll definitely see you guys very, very soon. And yeah, goodbye. So